Hey there, I'm Tracy Spears, speaker, author, coach, founder of Exceptional Leaders Lab, and head cheerleader for anyone wanting to play bigger. My guest this week is definitely playing bigger. I am so excited to introduce you to Brooke Eby. Brooke was diagnosed with ALS, a terminal, debilitating disease with no cure, at the age of 33 after 4 years of confusing symptoms. She spent the last year sharing her story through outlets like The Today Show, as well as on social media with over 170,000 followers, and let's add to that today. She's fundraised over $1 million for ALS research. With the support of her friends and family, she's been able to laugh in the face of ALS. And I have watched a few of your videos and so much about you, and I'm just thrilled to meet you, Brooke. Brooke, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
I am blown away by you. I have some funny questions to ask you about a wheelchair being thrown down.
My gosh.
But before we get to all that, so the name of this is Shift Out Loud. We'll talk about the big shift that we just mentioned in the intro. But tell us a little bit about you. Kind of where did you grow up? Tell us just a bit about you.
Yeah, I am now living back in the house that I grew up in. So life comes full circle. I grew up in Potomac, Maryland, went to Lehigh for college, and then after college went to New York City for a few years, San Francisco for a few years. So spent about 15 years just jumping from city to city. And then in the last couple of years, things have shifted quite a bit, and now I'm back in Maryland.
So let's talk about back in Maryland in a minute. But what led you to those different cities? Kind of give us a sense, like when you were growing up, did you have some big, this is what I'm going to go do, and so you end up in those big cities, or what?
Not really. I feel like I never really had some people just know exactly what they're going to do in their career from a young age. I wasn't really like that. I went to college not really knowing my major, but ended up really enjoying a lot of my classes that were around the tech industry. So ended up going into the tech industry right out of college, which is why I landed in New York. And then after a few years in New York, got pulled out to San Francisco where big tech was happening.
Right.
Stayed there for about 5 years. Then actually came back to New York with my current company, Salesforce. I've been with them for 8 years. So yeah, I guess it's been work, but I also just love cities.
So what's funny, so when you say tech, you're 35 now, I believe. So what was the big tech thing when you're 18 years old? Like, what was the technology like? Like, take me back.
I don't think it was cool. My major, it was a very small group of us that had this major. And I think in terms of social media, I think just Facebook existed when I was in college. I feel like Instagram didn't come out until I was out of college and graduated. So I don't think tech was very cool. At the time, it was much more like how businesses use technology. But those were just the classes I seemed to be okay at, whereas there were other classes like accounting where I could not focus at all.
I share that with you. Yeah. Well, I mean, I would always think about the tech, people wanted to go to work at Apple, or you mentioned Facebook, or that wasn't your thing. You were just kind of drawn to tech. Were your parents in tech in any way?
No one in my family is actually. And I wouldn't even really say it's I'm obsessed the way some people are. It's been a good fit for me over the last 15 years of adulthood. So yeah, my mom and my dad, neither one is in tech.
That's so funny. What do your parents do? Tell me.
My dad's they're both retired, but my dad is an engineer. And then my mom actually back in the day would write speeches for senators.
Really? Very nice.
Yeah, so different skill set on each of them. And then my sister's a doctor and my brother's a Wall Street guy. So we're all over the map.
I love that. Where do you fall in the birth order?
I'm the youngest.
You are? Okay.
Yeah. I feel like people get that pretty early.
So when you're traveling to these different cities, you're in the tech industry, kind of what's your life like? Are you super active? Are you athletic? What are you doing for hobbies at that time?
Yeah, I mean, I was in my 20s in New York City and in San Francisco, so it was just mostly having too much fun. I would do like workout classes. Like I got really into Pilates, but I was never like a marathoner or anything. Um, it was like just enough to keep me moving in New York where people move really fast. So yeah, it was mostly just like seeing friends, working. That's kind of all you do in those cities when you work um, a
Where did you
full-time job,
live?
it feels like.
Where did you live? I mean, listen, you say that, but yet when you are in New York City, you're getting more of a workout than people that aren't living. I mean, that is, yeah, yeah, right. That is the workout.
That's like where I really noticed my limp starting. Um, and I think New York helped me recognize it a lot earlier because like people will just trample. You do not want to be a slow walker in New York City.
True. So tell me about that. So let's kind of get into this. So
Yeah.
you start with like tell me your story.
Yeah. So I had just moved from San Francisco back to New York for work. And I had noticed some calf tightness in San Francisco, but I just figured I was like doing too much Pilates or I don't know, wasn't stretching or something. Um, it was also really hilly. So I'm like, maybe I was just walking on too many hills with my dog. And then when I came back to New York, a few of my coworkers started noticing that I was walking funny. Like it wasn't, it was a limp, but it was a weird one because my one foot really wasn't pushing off the ground. And so it was almost like I was like one foot was weighed down a little bit. So I went to my sister, the doctor, and had her take a look at it. And her test was to have me walk on my heels towards her. And as I was walking towards her on my heels, my right heel would stay up and my left foot just kept slamming down onto the ground. And she told me that was something called foot drop, which I had never heard of. Um, and she assumed it was like I pinched a nerve in my back and it was traveling down to my foot, which I guess happens to people. But I then went in to start getting tests and having all these things checked out, and they could not find anything that was causing the limp. I had an MRI that was clean. I had X-rays that were clean. I had CAT scans. Like nothing was coming back with any sort of proof. So they basically told me to go to physical therapy and just try to improve it. And after like a year or so of trying physical therapy, it wasn't getting any better. It was still, if anything, feeling worse. Um, so I kind of went through that process for after my sister told me that I had drop foot. It was, I think, 4 years from that point until I officially got a diagnosis. The first two, we really had no idea what was going on. I think 2 years in, a doctor mentioned ALS, but nobody really took that to heart. We thought I was too young and we thought it was genetic. Like we didn't know anything about the disease, so we thought I was fine. And then 4 years in, I started losing my balance a little bit more. And so I went back in and the limp had progressed to the right side as well. So both my feet were acting funny, which that was the point when I was officially able to get a diagnosis because they're like, okay, it's not just a one-off issue with your foot. So yeah, that was March of 2022. I was diagnosed, and here we are, 2024. A lot has changed for me physically, but you can't really tell when I'm on Zoom because so far my voice has been, knock on wood, pretty good. It's a little raspy, but I think I just sound tired most of the time. But like if you were to see beneath the camera, I'm in a wheelchair full time. My legs don't work anymore, neither one. Um, and now my core is very weak too, so I'm always like kind of hunched. And then now my arms and hands are starting to feel a little weaker. So for me, it's like moving up. It seems like it's moving up the body. Not everyone has that exact same progression. Like some people start by losing their voice. Some people start by not being able to swallow as well. Mine just happened to start in my foot and move up.
Take me back to that day that you found out. Like, were you just in disbelief? Were you who was with you? Were your parents with you? Were you with your sister?
Yeah, it's funny because it makes them sound like a really bad family. I was alone, but when I got diagnosed, but it's only because the prior 4 years, we'd gone to appointment after appointment and heard the
Sure.
exact same thing of like, we don't know what it is. Like, just keep living your life and tell us if something changes. So when I went in that March, they did the same test. It's called an EMG that they had done 7, 8 times on me the last 4 years. It's a really uncomfortable test too. They put a needle, sorry if that trigger warning for people who don't like needles. They put a needle into your muscle and then have you like flex the muscle. And if the machine makes noise, it's bad. Like I learned that over the course of the 7 tests. I was like, okay, so they don't want noise. Like it makes this weird crackling noise. I guess it's testing like the brain communicating to the muscles,
Okay.
those like nerves. And so on this test, I went in by myself because I was like, oh, I'm just getting another EMG. But this time, after he did my right foot, which was like historically the good foot, the one that used to save me from this conversation, he like pulled his chair around next to me and was like, I don't like what I'm seeing. And I remember being like, you've got to be kidding me. Like I came to this appointment. I thought this was just like a routine check.
Right.
And it turned out that he was giving me like this horrible news. So on the drive home, I think I was texting my sister like under the table while he was talking. And then on the way home, we had like a group call between my sister and my parents, and everyone was shocked.
Yeah.
And I think in denial. I think we've stayed in denial, which has helped us. But yeah, that was a tough day.
Listen, and so you were living in New York by yourself at that point? Where were
I
you?
actually had the timing of this is not lost on me. Like I think I knew what was coming. So I left New York at the end of 2021 and did a road trip with my dog. I took him, like we went from Maine down to Florida and just made like 15 stops in between. He hated it. I liked it. When we landed in Florida where my parents are, I then came back to Maryland and was gonna find an apartment here and do like, my job went remote during COVID. So I was like, I can live anywhere. And New York had started feeling a little like, where I was living just felt a little young for me. I don't know how to describe it. I think it honestly might have had to do with me not being able to walk around as quickly. I just felt like I couldn't keep up. So
Yeah.
I moved back here. And then a month after that, I had that appointment. So I was at home. My parents come back and forth. So I had people here, but yeah, it was rough.
So what happens that day? So you have the family meeting, you all stay in denial a bit. How do you move about the world differently from that day forward? What was the progression from then forward?
Yeah. I like don't even think I moved for the first couple months. I wish I had filmed more of it. Like I wish I'd started my socials right after I got diagnosed because I'm pretty sure I got into bed and a couple of my friends were like, we're going to come visit you. And I was like, don't yet. I feel too weird. Like I'm not ready to see anyone. And I would just like eat M&Ms and watch TV. And I was reading, if you look at my Goodreads, you can tell exactly when I was diagnosed. I was reading like a book a day, like just pure escapism. And then I think after 2 months of that, I had to go to a friend's wedding. And I was in the wedding. So it was like the ultimate reveal of where I had been in the last couple months. I showed up with a walker. It was the same walker as the bride's grandma. Like she had the same, we were like, hey, tennis balls. Like I see the tennis balls on the bottom. And then the bridesmaid's dress was so tight because I'd only been eating M&Ms and lying in bed. And I was just like, this is my nightmare. But as I was walking in, I turned to my friend and I was like, please, can we just go home? No one's even going to notice. And she was like, you're either going to be like really embarrassed, or we could just make this like a really fun night. What if we just turned it around and made it really fun? And like 2 hours later, I was giving my friends all walker rides on the dance floor and the bride was doing the limbo under my walker. And I'm like, okay, people are laughing now and that's making me more comfortable. So like this maybe is the path I need to take. And I think a month later, I started my TikTok and just like started sharing the funny things that had happened to me in the 2 months prior of being diagnosed because people don't know what to say. Like people say weird stuff. And I find it really funny most of the time. Like, I know some people would get offended but like, people just don't know what to say. I'm like, yeah, I'm 35 now, and I'm living with this disease that you picture like only affecting really old men most of the time.
Right.
And so people are like, what, how do you respond to that? It's so uncomfortable. So I just had so many funny situations, and I was like, I need to start sharing this because maybe it'll make, the next person a little bit more comfortable sooner and not have to go through those months like I did.
Well, listen, I like, first of all, you have amazing friends. That was a
I
momentous
know.
shift, right? What if they wouldn't have encouraged you to stay? Like, I don't know. That to me feels like a really
Yeah.
pivotal moment. You feel that way too, right?
Yeah. And that friend of mine, her name's Jackie. She's like famous now on my socials because we've been best friends since we were 4 years old. Um, and she's like the funniest person. And she's always saying, like, she used to say, like, go on the bad date because you'll get a good story out of it. Like, she's always kind of thought that way. And I think
Yeah.
it's helped me so much because I'm like, well, you know, I got asked to throw out the first pitch. If I bomb, like, we'll get a good story out of it. Who cares? So, um, yeah, she's always been right there.
Good. I'm glad you have her. I can't even imagine not having a really good support system that can make you laugh at yourself, like how much worse that would make what you're going through.
I think that's like the thing I really can't wrap my head around is how people do it alone. Like, I really have the perfect, like, building blocks to deal with something like this. Like, I have a really strong family, a family with a house that I can move back into. I have really close friends around. I still am able to work because I work in tech. Like, all these things sort of lined up where I can still kind of act like my days are normal, um, just with, maybe like showering, that part is not as the same way it used to be because now it requires like multiple chairs and multiple people to get me in the shower. But like the rest of my day, I still sort of keep normal.
So I was feeling I wanted to ask you all of those things, and like for the audience, when we first got on here, I asked you. I go, what can I not ask you? Because I have a lot of curiosity about it, and so we've made an agreement for the audience that if I ask you something you don't want to answer,
Yeah.
the safe word is pineapple. By the way.
I was gonna say we need a safe word.
But I mean, because for me, just watching what I've watched of you on your socials, I have just marvel at how you're managing and navigating what is a devastating situation, yet doing it with so much grace. And I watched some of the funny stories, especially you moving back with your parents, which I want to talk about.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I love that your days are pretty much normal and you've kept your job and all the things. Are you still, thinking, that are you still kind of in a fog about it though? Just the idea, or do you tell me what your process is now as you're watching this progress?
Yeah. It's so I've like never really been an anxious person. Like, all the people close to me seem to really have anxiety, and I fall more into like the depression category. I think where when things are bad, I'm not like feeling stressed out or manic. I'm just like, I'm not leaving the house today. Like, that's kind of been my approach. But I will say, since being diagnosed, I don't sleep well anymore, and I'm wondering like if maybe deep down I'm secretly stressed or anxious about this, and I just don't feel it or
Sure.
something. Like, I don't feel it in my brain, but I feel it in my body. Um, I wouldn't say I'm really in a fog. I would say we still roll with denial pretty heavily in my family, like, because every day something can change with this disease. Like, I could wake up tomorrow and not have a voice. I mean, it doesn't really happen like that, but it could over the next like month, for example, I could lose my voice. But I think we've all just chosen to believe I'm going to stay exactly at the point I am today, even though like a month ago I was at a different point. We're just sort of like focused on the exact moment that we're in and not really thinking about what's to come. I mean, to an extent, you have to plan for what's to come. But yeah, I think like denial has helped a lot. And physically, I've changed a lot, but it's the weirdest disease because it doesn't affect your brain. So, like, in my head, I should still be able to pop out of bed and like live a normal day, but my body's just not cooperating with that. So, yeah, it's a strange one.
Yeah, see, I don't even know that. So I'm like most people when you think of ALS and the ice bucket challenge, and we
Yeah.
had a football coach here that had it, and yet I don't know, which is why I'm so glad we're doing this, and why you are wanting to do this is just to educate people. Like, what are the things that you have learned? Did you when this happened? Did you dig in on all the information, or did you go into denial pretty quickly and just go, "We'll just take it as it comes," or do you have some, uh, I don't know, guide that you're going by? I don't even know how to ask that.
Yeah, no, it's a fair question because I think at the beginning I would like Google it and then immediately close out of the
Right.
window. Like it was
Has
because
yeah,
you Google it, like Google does not have any empathy or sympathy. I never know the difference between those two words. But you Google it and it's like death rate
right.
100%. You're like, thank you for this. I was just trying to figure out what was going on with me. Um, but and I say I know a lot about the disease now just by living it over the last 2 years. Like I still by no means have any like medical background. So I'm just like the lived experience, but I could tell you what I thought I knew versus what's actually true because I think that part is really crazy. So ALS as a whole, basically your brain and your muscles talk through something called motor neurons. There's like a little messenger called a motor neuron. In ALS, those motor neurons die like one by one. I don't know if it's one by one, but that's how I picture it, like little like sparks going off. And so my brain is still telling my foot like move, but there's nothing to actually communicate it, so my foot won't move.
Okay.
Which so it's I mean, you become paralyzed, but it's like a very strange thing because like I'm like, why can't I move it? Like it doesn't make sense. So before I got diagnosed, I thought, well, one, I thought it was mostly genetic, which was very wrong. It's 90% of cases are not genetic, which shocked
Really?
me.
That
I
is
thought like,
shocking.
yeah. And it turns out I actually did have a great uncle who had this, but when I did the genetic testing, all markers came back clear. So I'm not considered a genetic case. I'm considered sporadic. So 90% of us are sporadic and they don't know what causes it. So it's like, who knows? Maybe I was like predisposed to it. We didn't know, but there's just like, there's not enough we know about this disease yet to understand
Do
the
you
cause.
make up do you make up things like, "I bet it was that. I bet it," like, do you think about that?
So one of my like first viral series on TikTok was like 5 things that definitely did not cause my ALS. And then I like say like, but maybe because it's all like the crazy things I've done. It's like, I drank Four Loko every night in college for a year. Like it's just crazy. Or I like tried the checkout aisle candies at TJ Maxx. Like I had tried all of those. It's just like little things where I'm like, maybe it had something to do with it, but like it's mostly just jokes. But that is what's crazy is like when you don't know the cause, you can brainstorm for as long as you'd like, and it can drive you crazy. Um, so it's not genetic for me. And then I also thought it was like all men. I guess just because like Luke Eric and Stephen Hawking to me were like the two faces.
Definitely.
And I guess they're both on the younger side, but for some reason I still pictured older men. Um, and then I thought it was like way more rare. And then I got diagnosed at 20, or I started having symptoms at 29, diagnosed at 33. So everything I thought I knew was way off. And I've definitely learned a ton over the last couple of years, but I would say like my first value in life is like fun versus like intellectual stuff. So I wouldn't say I'm like researching the way some people with this disease are. Like they're diving into research papers, all this stuff. And I'm like, I can't spend my time doing that because it's just not my strong suit.
I'm glad you're not, because I do think that we have some agency over some of the things that happen to us.
Yeah.
So I love that you're not doing that, and that you're just approaching it with that attitude. And the fun is your family, your dad. Now, listen, I did see the video. Can we talk about the wheelchair incident on the
Yeah.
plane? You, I'll let you tee it up and tell the audience what happened.
Yeah. Well, apparently this happens like to everyone traveling with a wheelchair. It's just this is my first experience, and I happened to be filming all of this. So we went to Boston a week ago. We got back a week ago today. So last weekend, we get on the plane. They take my wheelchair and go to put it under. And we're sitting on the plane and we're not taking off. And it's like 45 minutes after we should have. And my dad looks over and he's like, I know it's your chair. Like, we know there, it's always the last thing they load. That's what's causing the problem. And like 5 minutes later, the guys came up, the ramp manager team came up and were like, hey, we dropped your chair. We're taking full responsibility, but like, we want you to come look at it to make sure, you still want to go on this trip, basically. And so I guess somehow as they were loading it onto the ramp, I don't know the details of what happened, but it fell off the ramp. And my wheelchair is like 400 pounds. So it landed on its side. And I don't think the side is intended to hold up 400 pounds. So like the arm bent in. I'm still sitting in it now and it's busted. They're in the process of ordering the new parts, but everything's broken on it. Like it's a very niche embarrassment. I'm like, don't look at my broken wheelchair. Like most people are like, I don't even know what it's supposed to look like. But yeah, I think they just didn't know how to operate. They probably had like a new hire to know what he was doing and just like ruined his day. But
But your dad handled it so beautifully. Like that's like he just seemed to be like, well, I mean, what can we do?
he is a pretty calm guy, but also I think he liked the excitement because they pulled him off the plane, put one of those yellow vests on him, and let him go down onto the tarmac. And he's an engineer, so he feels like at home when he's doing that kind of stuff. And they had him driving my wheelchair around the tarmac to make sure it would still drive. So, and then he came back up and he's like, it's good enough. We're still going. And I was like, okay. I'm like crying and he's just like, oh. So I think we kept each other calm in different moments, but he's definitely more level-headed than most people.
Well, how would your mother have reacted had she been the one that you were traveling with?
I don't know. I mean, I think we probably would have turned around and come home. Um, but my dad almost is like overly confident with his Mr. Fix-It skills. So I think he was like, I'll be able to figure out whatever problem it was. And I'm like, okay. I think I could have been swayed either way, either to stay or to go, but I'm glad we ended up going.
Nice. Well, when you said that you manage life with fun and that, and then I heard your dad's voice and, some of the things, and I thought,
Yeah.
I love that. But let's just tell the audience, and you've already said this, so you moved back in with your parents.
I know
So
I'm 2 weeks in today, 2 weeks in today.
how's that working?
It's been really nice, honestly. I lived in my last apartment for so many phases of my progression. Like I when I moved in 2 years ago, I wasn't even using a cane. I had a brace on my leg, but that was it. And then through that apartment's 2 years, I started using a cane, quickly went to a walker, quickly went to a wheelchair, quickly went to a bigger wheelchair, and then it got to the point in the last few months where I couldn't really transfer by myself, and that's kind of a clue that you need more help. So like transferring from your wheelchair to the shower chair or to the toilet or to the couch, like I was getting stuck and having to call neighbors to come save me, sometimes naked, which was always really fun and humbling. But after, I think it was like 3 months ago, I got stuck. And that was the point where I'm like, all right, Brooke, I think it's time, like face the facts at this point. But it's been really nice. Like my parents' house is really, really nice. And there's outdoor space for my dog to run around. And luckily they love my dog because that could have been a bad scenario.
That could have been.
But it's nice. Like I posted about it probably a month ago that I was thinking about it and that I wanted people's advice. And we were cracking up at the responses because my sister and I were like, this is proof that we as a family are in denial because people were writing like, I've moved back for way less. Like, what are you doing? Go home. And people are like, you'll have way more dignity at home versus having to like naked call neighbors. What are you doing? I'm like, oh yeah, these people are all right. And I like canceled my lease that week. So it's been a positive change.
That relationship you have with the people that are interacting with you on social media, that has to be tell me your experience of that.
It's I would say lucky is probably the word because I know, like, not everyone has these kind of comments. Um, but yeah, everyone's just been super I mean, I guess you'd have to guess, like, only really kind people would wanna follow someone with such a heavy story. It's not like I'm coming on and just talking about, like, easy things. So I guess the people who are following, like, I shouldn't be surprised at how supportive they are, but I definitely feel lucky.
Yeah. Well, I think the idea that you have a bunch of very apparently 170,000 people and counting that care deeply about your experience. Do you feel the pressure to like check in every day and let them know how you're doing? Do you have a cadence for that, or is it just kind of whenever you think about it?
I kind of just like live my life and then film the parts that I would find interesting. But I do notice that if I take a few days off of posting in a row, people worry.
Yeah.
Like it's not like oh, I think Brooke's sick of the internet. It's like, oh, is Brooke still breathing? Like we need to check on her. So I started doing some posts. My mom, when I was younger, like when I left the house to go to college and live in these big cities, she would text me D or A, like dead or alive. And I would have to respond A, or she would start like calling my roommates and the police, like she would go wild. And so I told people on the internet, I was like, every now and then, if I haven't posted in a while, I'll just do like an A check in. So now people will comment like D or A on my post.
I love that. I didn't see that. So I'm glad that's a funny story.
I mean, it's definitely not like a viral post by any means, but it's for the people who worry. Because I think I honestly have a lot of moms. Like, I think that might be my demographic is like millennial moms, maybe even like Gen X moms, but um, I think they all have that maternal worry in them.
For sure. Well, just listen. I mean, for you going through this and that you're willing to share it with people, I think people appreciate the vulnerability and appreciate the information. Like, I mean, I have a lot of curiosity about, your experience in this. And I also have a lot of curiosity, like, how does this happen? And I love that you're raising awareness because if we can get more educated, it also will help donations go up. And I mean, because the fact that we don't know still, it's rare with all of the research that we're doing and all of these different, you know, um, horizons. And yet that we don't know anything about this is really, it's just kind of, I'm just surprised.
Crazy. I know. And it's like, I'm sure if you were to talk to the researchers, every time I do, they all sound really excited about the progress that's been made and everything. But from the patient standpoint, nothing has really changed. Like there are two approved medications at this point that are intended to slow progression by like a couple of months. Maybe a percentage of life. I'm not sure how they're measuring it anymore, but um, the one medication's been around since like the 80s or 90s. And then there was one that was released like 3 years ago. And that's all we have. And it's mind blowing. So like, even though I think research is making progress from the patient standpoint, like nothing is being done quickly enough because we only have, they say 2 to 5 years once you're diagnosed is average. Um, and if like we need research to speed up at the speed that we have to live now. Like I say I live in dog years because I fit like 7 years in one. And so I need the researchers to be doing like 7 days in one in order to get this moving faster. Because I've just seen like families be devastated. We lose people so fast. And the disease can affect anyone. So no one's like immune from this.
Right. So what are some of those things on the bucket list? What are some of the things that you are You got that. That would be an interesting, yeah, kind of experience, I think, to try to like click some of those off. So what's on the
I
list?
know I never really made one. Um, People asked me online once to make one, so I wrote out like a few funny ones. Like I wanted to like have a day with penguins, and then I like went to the zoo and hung out with penguins for a day. Or like I want to, you know, I can't even remember what I wrote because it was just like an exercise of me doing it for people online, but I don't really have one. Like I just say yes to things I want to do and say no to things I don't want to do. But like the planning of stuff to me is like never been something I enjoy, like planning trips. I'm like, give me a break.
I
So
got you. I got you.
um
No, but you
luckily I
want
get to travel a lot now with a lot of this advocacy work that I'm doing. So I'm being like forced into doing things and then to enjoy them.
what are some of the things that you've gotten to do in the advocacy work?
I have done a lot of speaking engagements, which has been cool. Like I've spoken to honestly, the audience is always like doctors and researchers and scientists and these people that have all these letters after their name, unlike me. And I'm like, hey, I'm the girl from TikTok. What's up, you guys? Now everyone listen to me. So I do a lot of speaking engagements, which has been cool, and like traveling for those. Obviously, being on the Today Show was very, very cool, still very surreal. And then like outside of this stuff, I did goat yoga like 2 weeks ago. So we're checking things off, you know?
Very nice.
It's
Go,
unrelated to advocacy. I just remembered I was like, that should have been on my bucket list. It wasn't, but I did it.
nice. Well, that leads me to a question. What are some of the things that you're doing for physical activity? So are you doing like PT? Are you go yoga? I mean, I don't know. Are you going to do it again?
Yeah, I didn't actually do the yoga. I just held a baby goat the whole time. So I should just call it hanging out with goats. Um, so I do tea, but like it's been kind of in spurts. Like at the beginning, I was doing it a lot. Then once I got into the wheelchair full time, it started getting harder. I had a PT come and do like home PT, but you could only get that covered for 5 sessions or something, unless you're homebound, which I wasn't. And now I think I'm going to be restarting PT with a guy that we really like. So it's it's not fun. I feel like PT is never fun for
No.
anyone. Like even if you have to go, just my mom has to go right now because she broke her ankle a month ago, and she's like she keeps just canceling her appointments because nobody enjoys going.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like I can't really do that much. So they try to help me with the very few things that I can still do.
I imagine you and your mom hobbling around the house right now. Your dad's waiting on you both.
It was brutal when she wasn't really able to walk that much. The house is falling apart. I'm like, Dad, you better stay upright.
Yeah, for sure. I'm sure he's gotten a lot of exercise in the last little bit.
I think we've aged him quite a bit in the last couple of years.
What's something that you if there are some things that you would like people to know that they don't know other than the things we've already talked about, that it can affect anybody, that there's no cure, that we're not spending enough money, what else?
Yeah, I think the thing I haven't like harped on enough is how underfunded it is, um, in comparison to how devastating it is. Like, I mean, we all saw with COVID, obviously COVID is a different type of disease, but um, we saw how quickly things can move and how much budget can be pour money into something and prioritize it and figure something out. Obviously, ALS is different because there's not like a vaccine or like some kind of viral thing we can change with it, but that's the kind of attention I think ALS deserves. It's affecting, I think they say every 90 minutes someone is diagnosed and every 90 minutes someone dies from it. So like if there were a serial killer out here doing that, we would figure that out pretty quickly. Like, why are we not prioritizing this disease when Lou Gehrig made a speech about it 100 years ago and there's still not been any true like progress from the patient perspective? So the funding is something I've tried to focus on. I feel like that's, you know, the benefit of growing this online platform is that I can encourage people to donate and go to the walks every year and just like get more involved.
Nice. So what's next for you? What do you have any big things coming up that you're looking forward to? Do you have any I mean, today's show was a big deal and they fell in love with you as you could tell from watching that. That looked like a super fun experience for
It
you.
was, oh my gosh, she is as perfect as she seems on camera.
Good.
Um,
Good to
but yeah,
know.
we've been busy. Like my it's usually my dad and I, because my mom is sick of the travel at this point. I made her go on too many trips, and now she's like, I'm done. But we've got a few trips coming up in just like a week. We're gonna go to Cape Cod with a group of young women living with ALS. So people who are diagnosed before they were 35. There's a group of us, and we go on a retreat every year to Cape Cod just to see each other. And it's always crazy to see like the changes year to year. This year, I feel like I'm going to be one of the bigger changes because last year I was a lot more, a lot stronger, I felt, but that'll be nice.
How many people
And
are in that group?
it's growing every month. It's horrible. It seems like it's 2 new girls a month, I would say. I think there's like 100 people in it. Um, but that's just the girls. There's also a boys one too, but I don't know how many. I'm not allowed in that chat, so I can't tell. But there's a lot. Like it affects a lot of younger people. And it always feels like it's like more and more people are getting diagnosed. I don't know what the actual stats are because it's a hard disease to diagnose. It took me 4 years. So, um,
What will you do in the meeting? Will you hear, what will you, yeah, what will you do? I won't even lead
oh,
you.
in Cape Cod, it's just a retreat. So it's
Nice.
basically like a fun 4 days where we go to the beach, go to dinners. Like we're just seeing each other, and I'll film a bunch of it so that people can see like other faces living with this disease. But yeah, it's not like a conference. It's strictly a retreat.
Nice. Nice. That feels like a better spend of your time for sure.
Yeah, and actually one of the girls in the group who passed this year, we always try to do something to honor them. She got cremated into a disco ball.
What?
So one night we're all wearing like sequins and like disco ball attire. All the boys have like all the plus ones. It's like a lot of husbands. I'm bringing my dad, but a lot of like plus ones are going to be wearing sequin tops and ties and stuff. So, oh my gosh, it was meant to be.
I had had
I
this.
know. Isn't that incredible? Like,
Yeah.
how did you think of that? So yeah, it's just like fun, sad but fun at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah. And what else? Was there something else that you're looking forward to that's coming up?
I have a couple more speaking engagements. I think I have two more. One to a company in Colorado, and then one to an ALS organization. And then I think for the holidays, I got nothing. So just got to make it through to Christmas, and then I think I'd chill for a little bit.
Nice. And you work for Salesforce.com? So what an amazing organization they are, by the way,
Yeah.
anyway. And I love that you have that as your kind of steady gig.
Yeah, they've been really good to me. They do a lot of donating and volunteering with ALS organizations now, so it's been really cool.
Nice. Well, listen, can we tell the audience how they can follow you? We keep talking about your social, but let's
Yeah.
give them some information. Where can people follow you, Brooke?
Yeah, this is always the awkward part. So if you search Brooke Eby, I'm pretty sure it comes up. But my username is Limp Bruise Kit. I don't know if you're a Limp Bizkit fan. I actually don't think anyone's a true Limp Bizkit fan, including myself. Like I would not say I'm a fan. But my first symptom was a limp. And I was like, oh, I'll just throw my name in the middle of Limp Bizkit. And now I didn't think I'd actually get followers. So I was like, that'll be funny. And now people are like, what? Are you like a huge Limp Bizkit fan? Aren't they problematic? I'm like, yes, they are. So
That's funny.
it's Limp, LimpBroozkit, Limp Bruise Kit.
Very
I have to say
nice.
it makes more than I ever thought I would.
Is that just TikTok, or are you on Instagram? Are you?
Everything, yeah.
Yes,
YouTube, TikTok, Twitter, Instagram. I think I repost, yeah, Facebook too. Um, the only one I'm not good at is Threads.
I got you. Yeah,
Is
agreed.
anyone good at Threads yet?
I don't know. I saw it like 3 or 4 months ago pop up, but yeah,
I'm
nothing. Like
like, we don't want to do this. We don't want this.
yeah, I feel like that had a lot of momentum in the very beginning, and there's been a meh. So I don't know.
Yeah, someone actually like I think wrote on Threads. They were like, celebrities went on, asked us if we preferred vanilla or chocolate, and then disappeared from here. Because like everyone was just trying to get that initial voting engagement.
Yeah,
Uh, yeah,
that's
that's pretty
funny.
much how I view it.
That's funny. What do you have, like, any social media goals? Like, that, is there, like, a number of people you wanna follow? Is there somebody that you wanna like, do you do any kind of, is it called duels? I can't remember now. I don't remember what it's called. Duets? Are you doing any?
Oh, not really. I mean, I think like anything at this point is a fun surprise. Like whenever I see, you know, if there's like someone famous comment, I'm like, oh my God. Or like a brand. Like one time I had Mr. Peanut comment and I was like,
Nice.
I've made it.
That's
Um,
awesome.
yeah, because I was he has a cane too. Um, so yeah, it's I wouldn't say any real goals. I mean, I want to grow continuously, mostly just to get my story in front of people.
Right.
But I also see the benefit of like a slow and steady growth because then I think I get the nice people as opposed to people following me all at once and then realizing they hate me and starting to leave mean comments. So take your time if you need it, guys.
I was on TikTok for a while, and, at some point, it turned into, she has nice, upper teeth, but she should do her bottom teeth. Like, it feels like her hair would look better if she would let it grow long. Like, I was like, "What?"
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
sometimes they forget like that they're commenting on the person who was talking's
yeah.
phone. Like I'm the one seeing it. I get weird ones sometimes, but not nearly as bad as the ones I see on other people's.
You know what I decided to do? Decided to respond, "Thank you for the feedback." I
Yeah,
think
feedback is a gift.
yeah,
I always say that.
that's right. I think you're
Because people
right.
are like, what's so some of the weird ones I've gotten. I get a lot of like, you look like blanks, which are not mean, but like, it's just so, I'm like,
Yeah,
okay, thank you.
yeah,
Back is a gift. Um,
that's
yeah.
funny. Who have been some of the celebrities that have reached out to you that you said a few that kinda meant something that were noteworthy
Um, I don't know that
or liked your stuff or commented? Other than Savannah Guthrie, I'm glad to know she's as lovely
she's
as
the
you.
best. And then also, you know who I saw follow me the other day? It's not many, but Jamie Lynn Sigler
Very nice.
from The Sopranos.
Sure.
So I guess she has MS. I didn't know that. And so she's been like following my story and wrote me a really nice message. So
Nice.
yeah, it's I wouldn't say it's like there's a list, but that was an exciting one.
Are you documenting anything for a book? Or are you just gonna just do it like video, like it's video is the book?
I don't know. People have been like telling me to write a book for like a year now, but so many people who get ALS write books that I'm like, do we really need another one?
Do they
Uh,
really? I don't know this.
yeah, it seems like it to me. Maybe it's just because I'm in the ALS world, but maybe that's like your reaction is a good reminder to me that like it's a very insular world, so not everyone's reading these. So maybe I will, but I certainly have not started anything.
Yeah. Well,
It feels like
listen,
something I'm gonna put off until I need to.
I think what you're doing, though, showing the day-to-day life is so much better than a book. That's why I wondered about that. I think
Yeah.
to make the decision to be on a camera and listen, like, I mean, I just when I saw the wheelchair and I saw your, just I thought, "That's real," and, like,
Mhm.
that it just and the cat. How's the cat doing?
Okay, I need to give backstory on the cat to TikTok because I posted that and then forgot. And I do this all the time where I'll post like the first half of a story and then I forget to finish it.
Well,
Like
tell the
that cat.
audience what we're talking about
I
first.
I rescued that cat myself um 13 years ago when I was living in New York City. He lived with me for 4 years. Then when I moved to San Francisco, my parents took him until I found a place. And then he never came back to me. He decided he liked this life better. So now that I'm back, like, it's my cat, but he
Okay.
is acting like I have ruined his life by moving back in, which I feel like makes those sounds even more comical because I'm like, I saved you off the streets, my guy. But yeah, he just makes those noises in the morning. That's just like his MO. I don't know
Well,
what he's trying to say.
for the audience that has no idea what we're talking about, you turned on I guess it was a video, but it was dark and you couldn't see it. But you hear the blood curdling scream of a cat, and you
Yeah,
seem a bit frightened.
do the impression so people know what it's.
I can't do it. I'm not doing it. But that was a good try.
I don't think anyone could actually make that noise. It's guttural.
Yeah, but I felt like your fear was valid in that moment. Like, what is he saying to me right now?
I
And
know.
the story I made up is you're sleeping in his bed. That's the
A
story.
lot of people were like, "You got to open your door." I'm like, "There's no door. Like he is free to roam this whole house. He just wants people awake hanging out with him."
Okay, well, I'm glad you made it through the night with him.
Yeah.
Well, listen, is there anything else before we hang up? I don't even want to hang up. What a joy it's been to get to meet you and hear more about your story and how fucking brave you are. So just,
Thank you so much. No, I don't think. I feel like we've covered it all, but people are free to ask me questions on social, so don't be shy.
well, we'll put the link in the show notes, and just know you got a lot of people. I know you already know this, cheering you on. Boy, I'm on the list now as well. So
Thank you so much.
you're very welcome. Thanks for making the time.